Hey everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. Shit. It's all spinning out of control at once, isn't it? A lot of it is incredibly depressing, but not surprising. What's going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the natural disasters. I'm gonna get to all that. I'm going to try and, in this episode, try and also do some sort of analysis of the Republican national shit show. But let's start. So, I mean, there's just too much going on, so I'm trying to cram it all into one episode. But let's start with what's going on in Wisconsin. I already addressed the police shooting the other day in a video, but obviously it's gotten even worse with the killings of protesters by some fucking idiot with a assault rifle. I don't have a lot to say about that at the moment. It's disgusting and horrific, and it's what happens. It's what happens when you don't address the actual core problems of these situations. I said the same thing in Charlottesville, which I was there, and obviously someone was killed there. It's a horrific situation, and if you aren't going to address the core problems, then you're going to continue to see these types of incidents that spark off, national anger and ire and fury and fire. And the latest killing by a cop. I mean, I don't feel like I need to go through the numbers again, but our police kill well over 1,000 people a year. That hasn't changed this year, even in the middle of a pandemic. Apparently, their rate of killing has continued roughly the same. They are not trained to deal with these situations other than to shoot people. Whatever training they get on de-escalating a situation is usually minor. They'll get like 8 hours on de-escalating a situation, and they'll get 100 some hours on how to shoot their gun. So let's see, if you're really good at shooting a gun, really bad at de-escalation, don't even understand how de-escalation works, which one are you going to use? Which one do you think is the answer? Oh, the one you've been trained on over and over and over and over again? That's probably going to be your answer. And as I've discussed before, most cops in most cities get an incredibly tiny amount of training at all. It's less than hairdressers in a lot of areas. It's less than some like beauticians and things. In some areas, a large amount less. If you have to, if you're going to get a job as like a blacksmith or something, working with steel, then you have to be an apprentice to get your actual license. You have to be an apprentice for far longer than people trained to be police officers. I don't know if they've changed it, but there was one, it was either one city in Georgia or maybe it was all of Georgia where, you needed to have like 100 hours of training to be a police officer, but you could get that 100 hours at any point during your first year. So basically they were like, here's a badge, have fun, see what happens, and oh yeah, while you're out there, also come back for a little training here and there. I mean, imagine if they did driver's license like that. Hey, here's your driver's license, go, have fun in the car, do whatever the fuck you're gonna do. Later, sometime during this year, come back and get trained on how to drive the vehicle. It's fucking insane. But obviously, the killing of the protesters is just fucking disgusting, and it's being defended by some of these awful racist, incredibly racist. Did I mention racist human beings? I don't know. I think that the other thing I can say about this is you need to look to solidarity. It's with your, people that, other protesters, people that do this kind of work, people that are out there speaking the truth. That's where you're going to usually find actual help, as opposed to our government resources that have been largely captured by big corporations and the wealthiest Americans. You're not usually going to get the most help from them. So right now, look to that solidarity. It can be incredibly powerful. And as I've said before, in Charlottesville, after the terrorist event, the first people to help for the first 15 minutes, which, if you can imagine, if you have tons of people injured, scared, hurt, one person dead, 15 minutes is like 8 years. For the first 15 minutes, the people helping were the medics, were the street medics, were the front lines, protester medics that they don't call themselves protesters. They are medics. They usually have markings on their hats and things. And they were the ones there actually helping. The next to arrive about 15 minutes later was the firefighter EMTs, and then they came to help. And then eventually, like a half hour later, which again, that feels like 3 years, is when police actually showed up and said, "Hey, don't kill people." And this is in a city where there were police everywhere. So it seems, and actually we later found out that the police were told to stand down, anyway, I guess I don't need to repeat all that. I wanted to move on to one of the other biggest stories going on right now in our country, which is you've got the most powerful hurricane in Louisiana history over the past 100 years, something like that. And whenever they say, 100 years ago there was one equally powerful, it's like, but 100 years ago, they measured that by like a guy outside with a windsock. He was just like, it's blowing out here. I know that when my nose hairs go curly, that means it's over 150 miles an hour. Anyway, but apparently 100 years. And there's that dynamic of possibly 2 hurricanes at the same time in that area, which has also never happened, I don't think. And then on top of that, you're currently seeing the second and third largest fires in California history, which is on the backs of, 2017 was a historic fire season, 1 in 100 years. And then 2018 was a historic fire season, 1 in 100 years. And then 2019 was a historic fire season, once in every 100 years. And now you're seeing the second and third largest fires in California history simultaneously. And yet, I've been watching the mainstream media. I do that for you. It's like saying I fucking stab needles in my fucking nipples to do that for you. And they still have a lot of trouble saying the words climate change or climate chaos. It just does not, it cannot come out of their mouths. No matter, they'll sit there and cover oh my God, it's the largest hurricane in 100 years. And I'm not saying they never have climate change reports. Some people are like, I saw a climate change report on CNN the other day. And it's like, yeah, occasionally they will. But still, in the midst of this coverage, it should be beaten into everyone's brains. This is what's fucking happening. We're going to see more and bigger natural disasters on a daily basis, and it's more than we can deal with. It's more than you can't even have a normal life. You can't have a normal house without fearing that it's going to catch on fire, go underwater, whatever the fuck. And this is what's happening because we've allowed fossil fuels to dictate our future. And to watch these mainstream clowns not mention it as they go through these reports, as they cover them. And there's other things they don't mention. They often will cover these fires in California and talk about the firefighters and be like, look at these brave firefighters. And they won't mention that it's something like half of them or 2/3 of them are prison inmates. In these California fires. And now they don't even have enough prison inmates to fight these fires because many of the prisoners have COVID-19 or, they're paying them like $1 an hour or something. And so they'll do these reports on, thank goodness for these firefighters, but the firefighters just can't handle these fires because they're so big. But thank goodness those firefighters are doing their best out there. We love them. They are on the front lines. And they won't say these are fucking prisoners. And when they do, when the state governments or the people that run the prisons, they'll say, look, these prisoners like fighting these fires because it lets them get out of the prison. They get to go out into the nature, and they enjoy fighting fire. And if you can have interviews with the prisoners saying, I love fighting fires, it's really my passion, and I'm really glad they let me do it. I'm not denying that, but that doesn't mean there's not a bit of a power dynamic there when you're stuck in prison and they say, hey, the only way you're ever fucking getting out of these bars is to go fight fires with us. And then they're like, wow, that sounds pretty good. I get to be out in a field as opposed to be in prison. So I'm not saying that's not their passion, that they don't enjoy it. They do, but you cannot deny the power dynamic, the force that these prisoners are under to do it. Another reason they might feel a force to do it is economic force, because they're getting $1 to $2 an hour. And to them, that's a huge amount of money. There's a lot of other jobs, quote unquote, in prison where you're getting paid, 10 cents an hour, 20 cents an hour. Prisoners are call centers often. They're, as has been, I think they maybe have changed since all the reports came out, but they sew or have sewn in the past Victoria's Secret underwear. And for some products, for one product I covered on Redacted tonight, their job was to sew the Made in America labels on the clothing, because the clothing was being made somewhere else in some other country, but then it would be shipped to America so that a prisoner could sew the Made in America, the horseshit Made in America label on the piece of clothing. And so that's the level of regulation, quote unquote, for those Made in America stickers on your clothing. Unless you actually look into where the products are actually made. Sometimes all that Made in America label means is that the label was made in America, was sewn on in America. Oh God, that's a level of fucking hilarious dystopian bullshit. That's beautiful. Anyway, back to the point that climate change should be a lot of what we talk about. It should be a lot of our daily discussions with people, and we could change a lot of the way we live. I mean, even if we can't, even if we're quickly getting to the point of no return, where this global system we live in, it will spiral out of control. Even if we were to get there, there's a lot of ways you can help people in these times, but we won't even discuss it. It's hardly a discussion. It is, I think, amongst people, but amongst your mainstream media, it should be hammered into everyone's head on a regular basis. And this, of course, is not even talking about Fox News, where I think they still say it's not happening. They just every year they go, wow, second largest fire in California history. Isn't that fascinating? Wasn't last year the first largest fire in California? Yeah, what? Oh, last year was the first. And wasn't the year before that once in 100 years fire? Yeah, year before that was once in 100. Huh. A lot of once in 100 years fires. Yeah, a lot of once in 100 years fires. That's interesting. That's fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating. And they'll just leave it at that. Never mention the reality behind it all. Also, what we see in these times of struggle, these times of natural disasters, is that our systems to protect people, to help people, are increasingly failing. And this has to do with when you have a government and a state that has been captured by profit-seeking entities, profit at all cost, literally. Then helping people, making sure they get through natural disasters, is just not on the list of top, 10, 20 priorities. Somewhere down at the bottom, there's someone who's like, maybe we should have a shelter for people fleeing the hurricane. And someone's like, oh, okay, put them in the bottom of that old school that was foreclosed on and shut down and is filled with rats. Okay, sounds good. If things get rough, they can eat the rats. But this there are ways to help people there, and for those of you that are maybe in the path of this hurricane and or the path of these fires or near these fires, I hope you are okay. I hope you find the help you need. I hope that you're helping each other, because like I said with the earlier topic in Wisconsin, the solidarity now is going to come from each other more so than it's going to come from a completely bought out profit over all else sociopath government. You need to create community, and I don't claim to be great at that. If I did, I'd be an organizer. I'd be running around saying, here's how to create a community that can help each other and be sustainable. But I do know it needs to happen, and I do know people often get more help from that than from the authorities. You look to things like those helping homeless people, and nowadays it seems to be just individuals who've decided to do it. You look to mutual aid. Here in D.C., the mutual aid is going strong, and I know a lot of other cities as well. For those of you who might be watching who are in need, look up the mutual aid in your area. Hopefully you have one if it's a bigger city. And mutual aid doesn't ask any questions. They don't need any money from you. Their whole point is to help you get food and sometimes other things as well. But food is probably the most, occasional clothing maybe, but food is probably the most common one that mutual aid's involved in. But yeah, when you start dealing with the kind of precipice of a failed state, then people are going to have to turn to each other, and hopefully that keeps happening and keeps growing, and those systems can be built up in a larger way. So speaking of not mentioning climate change or thinking it doesn't exist, let's talk about the RNC, the Republican National Convention. Normally I don't spend that much time on the Republicans because I feel like if you watch my stuff, you kind of already know that they're just full of shit, that they're a pathetic group of sad sociopaths. Now, I also believe that about 90% or more of the Democrats, but I don't feel like I have to spend my time on the Republicans usually because I feel like you get it. It's kind of like spending your time trashing Fox News. You're like, yeah, if you believe Fox News, then you are already ate a lot of paint chips and you're kind of a lost cause. But I also understand that Fox News is the most watched news channel in the nation. So that's, says a lot. It says a lot. So I watched some of the RNC. By the way, this is not ignoring the Democrats. If you want to see my full analysis of the Democratic National Convention, which I played, it was on Redacted tonight. I played clips. It was like 23 minutes long. That's at youtube.com/redacted tonight. So if you're in the comment section, don't fucking say I'm giving the Democrats a pass. All right. I'm not. This episode just happens to be about the Republicans. So this RNC, what I've watched so far, I don't know if you can have a clown car dumpster fire, like a joint thing, that like it's like a clown car that then catches on fire, and then it's just a bunch of clowns trying desperately to get out as their like faces melt off. But that's the RNC. Pretty sure. I don't know if I saw that from one of the ads for the RNC. I'm not sure if they're promoting that aspect. Like, hey, look at these screaming, melting clowns as they try and get out of their dumpster fire car. I can't remember if I saw that ad, but it would be a good one because it'd be accurate. It'd be, it's nice to see some truth in politics, and I think that would be a good ad for them to do. But, it is a complete denial of reality. And the Democratic National Convention was also a denial of reality in a different form. It's kind of like they're all lying to you, but the Democrats will lie to you on these kind of vaguer issues where they're like, we help black people or people of color in this country, and we think these killings by police officers needed to stop. They'll say something like that. And then you go and look at their record, and it's the complete opposite. But they'll rarely, the only slight difference is Democrats will rarely, like, say to you, like, this apple is an orange, and they'll hold it up. Or that was some CNN commercial. So CNN's been using this same horseshit, but they'll rarely like point to something and say that's not there, or say that Oh yeah, I know the better example because I used it the other day. Is the DNC is like watching a dog lick its own ass. And you're just sitting there and you're just watching and you're hoping that it's going to create some change in the world. If I just watch this dog lick its own ass long enough, it's going to create change in the world. The Republican National Convention is like watching a dog lick its own ass, and then the dog looks you in the eyes and says, I'm not licking my own ass. And then just goes back to doing it. That's the only difference. It's very small. But anyway. So the RNC, and I hope you haven't been watching it, but it's each person, each speaker is denying reality in a massive way. You've got they had a few black speakers who think that Trump somehow has helped black people in this country, which is fucking ridiculous. You have Mike Pompeo saying that they've done a lot for diplomacy, which is the fucking opposite. You have Rand Paul, who supposedly was the only like anti-war person in all of Congress, and now has just had a switch where he keeps talking about ending war, but now he supports Donald Trump, and he apparently he voted against the 10% cut in Pentagon spending. 10% out of $1 trillion. As if the Pentagon wouldn't be okay with a 10% cut in their fucking spend. It's laughable, and apparently Rand Paul even voted against that. But anyway, so Rand Paul said Trump has done all these great things to end war around the world. No, he fucking hasn't. No, he hasn't. He's bombed. The bombing done by our military-industrial complex while Trump has been in office has been at a greater rate than even under Obama. And Obama set the record before that. Obama, his final year in office, it was 26,000 drone bombs were dropped in Obama's final year, or munitions of some sort, most of them drone bombs. For Trump, in his first year, he basically told the military-industrial complex, I'm not even going to read your papers. Like, if you want to tell me that something's going on, I'm not even going to read it. I don't give a shit. Do whatever you want. He basically said that to them. So they have now, his first year, I believe, was 40,000 munitions dropped. So this is not to say Obama is some sort of peacenik, okay? This is to say Obama and Biden are fucking war criminals, and Donald Trump is a fucking war criminal. And right now, people in America are being told to choose between two fucking racist, sexist war criminals. Sexual assault fucking perpetrators. That's the decision. It's fucking ridiculous. Anyway, so all of these lies, you have Larry Kudlow, the former drug addict, Wall Street, fucking billionaire or whatever he is, multi-millionaire, who, and by the way, I have no problem with drug addicts. I think, it's a medical issue, but when you're a fucking hypocrite about it, that's different. But he said he acted like the pandemic's over and Trump solved it. The reality is so far from whatever the fuck the RNC is showing. And I realize that MSNBC will say that too, and then they'll say the Democrats are all doing wonderful shit. But what MSNBC won't say is this shit show, this clown car dumpster fire that is the RNC, that does not come about. You don't end up here with that ridiculous display of fucking, completely morally bankrupt spectacle. You don't end up there without the previous years, without a system that is lying to you, that is not responsive to the people. Like the Democrats and the Republicans, but even the Democrats are responsible for creating a system that allowed or actually forced the fucking Trump shit show to arise out of it. Okay, this is the end result of a system that has been captured by sociopaths. This is an oligarchy run by sociopaths at every level, both in the government and then in the corporate boardrooms, which most corporate boardrooms, or not most, but several corporate boardrooms are now more powerful than many countries around the world. Some are more powerful in a lot of ways than America because they own the American politicians. And who gets to the top of a corporation? It's a sociopath. That's the one who does the best, who seeks profit over all else, who would fucking punch his grandmother in the throat to get an extra $5. That's the guy who gets to the top of these corporations. And when you have a system that is completely captured like that, the criminal justice system, the legislatures, and is basically a failed state when it comes to actually helping people, when it comes to actually making sure people have an okay life, making sure the environment isn't collapsing. When you get to that point, then you end up with a Trump. You end up with a Republican national convention that looks like this. And so the Democrats, along with the Republicans, have created the void that allowed Trump to show up. They created a world where politicians were no longer believable in any level. They were not doing at all what they said they would do. A large Princeton study showed that the American people never get what they want in Congress, meaning no matter the level of pressure. I mean, the protests against the Iraq War were some of the biggest in history, and it didn't stop the Iraq War. The protests for many of these things have been massive, and it doesn't change. It doesn't change the way your Congress behaves, and that's what the large Princeton study found. And when you do that, when you are completely unaccountable to the people, and they don't believe you anymore, and they don't trust you, and a media that's completely bought off, so you don't trust that media at all either, then you end up with a system that can allow a Donald Trump. So again, I think we have to look at the core issues, not just point at Trump and go, wow, he's a fucking awful, lying sack of shit, which is absolutely true. But you have to look at the core, at the heart that created this. And anyway, I don't know if I can watch more of the RNC. I know there's another night of it, but Jesus Christ, it's like, I feel like the hot dog eating competitions, where they're the final 2 minutes where they've already had 50 or 60 hot dogs. And now it's like, keep going, man. And I'm like, I don't want it anymore. I don't want it. That's how I feel. I did vomit all over myself during watching the RNC last night. So I feel like once you've reached the vomit level, then you've done your duty. You fought through some of it. It's such a level of garbage. But anyway, I hope I covered some of the main issues going on in our world today. Like I said, this has been a tough. Oh, I didn't mention. So one thing I didn't mention is the sports protests that are going on. I don't talk a lot about sports, and I don't watch a lot of sports. I think sports can be a look. Life should not all be about watching what is on your fucking cable news channels. In fact, you shouldn't. So I think that there can be a part of life where you're enjoying sports because you need a fucking break. All right, it's the same reason I watch some stupid TV sometimes, because I need a fucking break from it all. So I have no problem with people watching sports occasionally. Now, if they act like that's their life, if the first thing out of their mouth is just what the Lakers did or something, and they are incapable of being passionate about anything beyond what the Lakers did, then I think you got a problem. You should probably find some other passions in life as well. You should probably become a little more well-rounded. But however, what I've often thought, and I said this years ago, and I used to say it more often, but the amount of, it seemed, change that could happen from just some of the biggest athletes in the world, just even one of them. I often wondered, what if the number one tennis player in the world, Roger Federer, or the biggest athlete, Michael Jordan back in the 90s, had just said, hey, I can't wear Nike anymore because I found out it's made in sweatshops and they don't pay those workers hardly anything and they're like starving to death. And so I just can't promote that brand anymore. And they would lose their fucking multi-million-dollar deal. I get that. But they also make millions of dollars from other things, and they could make millions of dollars from a brand that says they will have it made in America or whatever. It doesn't even be made in America, but it just needs to be made legitimately with workers that are actually paid. And anyway, the amount of one dude doing that could have, or lady could have a huge impact. And it often amazed me that you didn't see hardly any of that. You didn't see hardly any political statement from a large-scale, well-known, super famous athlete. And then when they did, occasionally, when one of them did, they would be just tarred and feathered, just play ball. And, of course, we saw that with Kaepernick, right? And Kaepernick is probably the best example of how much change one athlete who wasn't even well-known beforehand can create, can start. It's incredible. And by the way, for those who have forgotten, Kamala Harris said that Kaepernick's taking a knee was caused by Russian bots. Literally, go look it up. She thinks Russians created the Kaepernick movement, not the killing of unarmed black people in the streets, but and other police brutality. But so anyway, and so you're seeing that a little bit more now, finally, from some of these athletes. And this is probably the biggest one we've ever seen the past couple of days. Several basketball teams have said they're not playing. Was it all of them? Maybe it was all of them in the playoffs. I don't know. Have one led the way, and then I think it was Milwaukee, and then the others have followed suit. But then there's other athletes stepping down and saying they're not going to play. Naomi Osaka, the tennis player, and many others have said basically they're putting a pause on sports for the moment, and it's getting a lot of talk. It makes people talk and think about it, and in a massive way. And so in that way, I think it's important. I don't think sports should be your whole life, but these athletes have a lot of power, and I'd rather athletes and celebrities use their power for good rather than acting like it doesn't exist. Now, unfortunately, a lot of celebrities have come out recently and kind of fallen for cable news. They think that everything they see on MSNBC is true, so they'll come out and be like, fuck Venezuela, or some shit. And that's really sad that they were like, wow, I have this big power as a celebrity, and you know how I'm going to use it? I'm going to use it to get at those Venezuelan people. That's the real way I'm going to do it. And that's really pathetic to see. But, that shows the power of the mainstream media, the corrupt and corporate mainstream media. They have tricked a lot of these celebrities into believing their horseshit, into believing our, nationalist, toxic nationalism propaganda. And so they sometimes fall for it. But in this case, police brutality is a real thing. And it's good to see that athletes are taking it seriously. And they can have a lot of impact. Okay, I think I covered everything. If you please, before you leave here, either share it, hit the like button, leave a comment. All those things help grow the platform. Some of you know, some of you may not know that I've basically tried to recreate a YouTube channel because the other one is so heavily suppressed. That's youtube.com/Moment of Clarity is the new one. Please subscribe to it. Click the bell icon. And I'm doing these Moment of Clarities every single day, except sometimes. Yes. Probably 4 or 5 times a week. So anytime you miss one, just go to leecamp.com and you can watch it there. All right. Keep fighting.